Howdy folks, Morro here with another tier list. This time, the saints of our glorious Temple of the Three. Now for this one, it's going to get a little deep into our lore, and I actually had to learn a lot for this video, so hopefully I can transmit at least a bit of it onto you as we rank our glorious saints. But obviously, we have to start with our glorious Amalexia, otherwise known as Amalexia the Lover, Amalexia the Warden, I am, the Lady of Mercy, or Mommy Morrowind. Now, don't come at me in the comments for this, but she's an S tier. Just hear me out. She's a baddie. And I know she goes kind of loopy at the end of the main story, but Nerevar saw something in her. I, as the Nerevaran, see something in her. Moving on. Next up, we have Saint Aore the Penitent. Now, he's the patron saint of tanners and miners, and one thing you're going to notice as we continue on through this tier list is that with a lot of these saints, they don't really correlate with how they became a saint and what they are the saint of, and Saint Aore is a great example of this. Like I said, tanners and miners. Now, he becomes a saint because in his life, he was a condemned criminal, but he decided to repent for his sins and made a circuit of all of the great pilgrimage sites, but on his knees. And for this, he was made a saint. Now, that's pretty base that you decided to do that, Aore, but the fact that you were a criminal in the first place, a condemned one too, and okay, cool, you're a saint now? A C tier. Sorry, Aore. You have a cool name, but besides that, cool, I guess. Next up, we have Saint Dalen the Wise. Now, I like Dalen the Wise for a few reasons. He's a member of House Indral, and as you know, special place in my heart for House Indral. In fact, he used to be the head of that family. He also has a canton in Vivec City all to his own, one of those big floating island things, and a statue in Vivec City. Now, he's the patron saint of potters and glassmakers, people who make things that you eat or drink out of, or like windows. Now, he became a saint because he wrote a lot of treatises on Tribunal, temple customs, and legality. Kind of a boring way to become a saint, although just because of how important he apparently was, I'll give him a B tier. Thelms the Bold is another one of these minor saints. However, he's an S tier. Let me explain this. First off, he's the patron saint of butchers and fishmongers, which is lame, yes, but let me tell you about Thelms. First off, this man was illiterate, could not read, could not write. However, during old-timey Resdane times, the Nords were invading Morrowind, as they often did in those times. This guy, Thelms, with his mighty cleaver, decided he was going to kill as many Nords as he could and drive them out of Morrowind personally. And you know what? He freaking did it. Well, or at least contributed greatly to the efforts of doing it. And for that, he was made a saint. Saint Thelms the Bold. And you know what? That earns him an S tier spot, in my opinion. Now, of course, we have Saint Jube, the Eradicator of the Winged Menace. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a cool banner icon like all of the other saints do. However, I'm sure we all recognize this artwork as Jube. I could not find the original artist. If you know who the original artist is, comment in the comments, and I will pin it. Now, Jube is an easy S tier. I do think he's above Thelms, but not above Amalexia. He's made famous and special in our hearts due to, of course, our personal Nerevaran meeting him on the boat. But also, he killed all the cliff racers, guys. Thank you, Jube. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, Jube. Also, he was the last saint canonized before the filthy Daedra worshippers took back over the religious structure of Morrowind, so he's special for that, being the last saint as well. Next up, we have Lothus the Pious, which, first off, aren't all of them pious, they're saints. But moving on, he's the patron saint of tailors and dyers, and also the patron saint of house dress. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know, I'm not a big fan of house dress. Not because I have beef with them, I just think they're not that interesting. Although, a few of you have commented on my Great House video, and have convinced me that, you know what, they're a lot less not interesting than I thought they were. Now, Lothus was really important in the early days of the temple, because he created a lot of the rituals and principles of the, very nascent new temple when it was first being founded. So for that, I'm giving him an A tier, just because of how important he was to the structure of the temple, the Tribunal. However, if any of you have seen his artifact, the Crozier of St. Lothus, it's kind of terrible. Next up, Maris the Peacemaker. She was trained to be a healer, although she is the patron saint of farmers and laborers, the lower class people. What she was made a saint for is actually a cool story for once, like Thelms, but not as cool as Thelms. Now, at her time in life, a bunch of the houses were engaging in a long and bloody war. She decides she's going to use her healing abilities to go out into the middle of the battlefield and heal anyone she could find, regardless of what side they're on. And she led so many people by example in this that a lot of the soldiers decided to put down their weapons and push for peace instead of fighting each other. And so she was canonized as a saint for this. And I think that puts her in the A tier. I think Maris is actually a pretty cool saint. Now, Nerevar the captain. I mean, what do we do with Nerevar? I mean, obviously he's S tier, and I don't think anyone's going to complain if I put him at the top of S tier, right? Like who's going to argue with that? This would be like a 20-minute video if I said everything that Nerevar did. But I will say a few complaints I have about Nerevar the captain. And that has purely to do with who he's the patron saint of. He's the patron saint of Redoran, which, look, I know that Nerevar was like a warrior and that Redoran is like the warrior great house, but Nerevar was a member of the Indoral family. And yes, technically I know he was not born into the Indoral family. He married into the Indoral family. He was technically a member of the Morro family. But come on, guys. He married into the Indoral family. His last name was Indoral. It just feels kind of weird to have a member from one house, even if they were only legally technically part of that house. It's still, their name is Nerevar Indoral, yet they're not the patron saint of the Indoral great house. That just feels weird to me, right? Am I the only one that's like that? You can let me know in the comments. I think it would be way cooler if Nerevar was the patron saint of Indoral. Maybe I'm just too much of a fanboy for the Indoral house. You can let me know that as well. Next up, we have Olmes. This is the other guy that also has a canton in Vivec. Now, he's known as Saint Olmes the Just, and he's the patron saint of chandlers and clerks. Now, this guy is the actual patron saint of House Indoral. And he was kind of cool because he's responsible for creating the inquisitorial practices and the methods for repentance within the temple. So I'll give him an A, mostly for the ordinator thing, because, I mean, the drip, as I'm sure you're aware. Go see this video. Now, Rilms the Barefooted. I like Rilms as a concept, and I'm sure if I met Rilms, I would like them as a person, but let me get into it. So St. Rilms the Barefooted, this is one that actually makes sense who they're a patron saint of. They're the patron saint of pilgrims and beggars. This one makes sense. They were born as like a rich, hoity-toity noble, but they decided that they would give up all their riches and live as a beggar because that would be holy. Cool. Makes sense. Okay, that's it. That's why they're a saint. Okay, I'm sorry, that's D tier. Like, okay, I give up all my riches and I'm a beggar. You're a saint now? I feel like that's kind of a low bar versus like, I helped push the Nords out of Morrowind and I eradicated an entire species of pest. You know, it just doesn't feel like it's on the same level. This is another one that's kind of like, how is this saint worthy? Saint Roris the Martyr. This guy was the last saint before Jube. So this guy used to be the most recent one until Jube came along. Now, Saint Roris the Martyr, this one doesn't make sense who he's a patron saint of. Patron saint of furnishers and caravanners. Okay, now this guy gets captured by Argonians just before the Arnesian War starts, and they torture him and try to force him to renounce his belief in our holy Tribunal 3, but he refuses to, and so they kill him. And he's made a saint for this? Like, I'm happy and I'm very proud of him for staying true to our holy faith. But like, once again, I feel like anybody could have done this, right? I'll give him C because his thing was a lot harder to do. It was a lot hardcore, at least, than Realms. But like, it's definitely not up here with this stuff. Now, Sarin the Merciful, patron saint of brewers, bakers, and distillers. This one's a little weird because like, it's very similar to Maris. She decides to heal everyone she could find, but instead of just healing them like Maris does, she heals them by like absorbing all of their illnesses and wounds onto herself. Very strange. I guess it's nice of her. It's very cool, even that she has this ability in the first place. But like, I feel like you could have done this a lot easier like Maris did. So B tier. All right, these next three are going to be pretty cool, pretty hardcore. So Thassil, let me tell you this guy's titles. Set, the mainspring Everwound, the father of mysteries, Magus, the magician, the teacher, the sorcerer, the tinkerer, the clockwork god, the light of knowledge, the inspiration of craft and sorcery, the god of the world mechanism, the clockwork king of the 3-in-1, and the watchmaker. He's got a long list of titles. Now, I could go into it, but I'll give you the Spark Notes version. I like Thassil a lot, and he's definitely S tier. I think he's above Jube, and I'll put him above Amalexia, even though she is mommy. And the reason for this is, you know, when Azura shows up, blasted Azura, and she curses us all to have our dark skin and our red eyes, he's the only one who decides, you know what, I'll join in solidarity with my new kin. You know, Amalexia, she stays a Chimer. Vivec does the half and half thing. So Thassil's like, you know what, I'm a Dunmer too. And I appreciate that with him. You know, he feels very down to earth, even though personality-wise, he's very much not down to earth. I like that about him. He's a cool dude. Now, Veloth, I'm going to just go straight into it. Veloth the Prophet. I think he is our top S tier. Veloth the Prophet, OG Morrowind Saint. This is the guy way back in the time when there wasn't even Chimer. It was just Aldmer. He's hanging around in the Somerset Isles and he's like, man, these other Aldmer suck. They're worshiping the wrong ancestors. We need to leave. And so he takes all of his followers and he screws out of there and he just wanders all the way over to Morrowind, which was Resdain at the time. And he's like, well, this is where we're living now. Now, unfortunately, he did worship the Daedra and not the temple, but we can't blame him for that because they didn't exist at the time. So removing that factor from our decision, I think he's our top S tier. You can let me know what you think about that. Now, Vivek the Poet, I think he's our bottom of A tier. I like Vivek. I like him, but like I like him in the way like we get along personally. As a saint, I'm not a big fan. And that's because a lot of his good deeds seem to have like a string attached to them. The most obvious one is obviously the meteor that Sheogorath sent down and Vivek stopped in quotations. He just sort of left it floating right above his holy city. Like, Vivek, what was the long-term plan on that? Really? Okay. I feel like Vivek probably could have done something about that, but didn't on purpose, and I do not appreciate that. Now, Voris is technically ESO canon, but I am including it because ESO is technically canon. Voris was the original patron saint of House Telvanni, and it's from him that we get the phrase, it is the forceful expression of will that gives true honor to the ancestors, which is, the house words of Telvanni. I'll give him a B tier, just because not much is known about him other than he was kind of a hardcore dude. And he was hardcore even for Telvanni standards. He fell out of favor because the Telvanni found him a bit unsavory, which if a Telvanni says that about you, that's, you're probably doing something. It probably isn't a good fit amongst the other saints, but don't ask him what he was doing with his Khajiit slaves. So, I'm pretty confident with this tier list. You can read up on your lore and let me know how way off I was. It's only the placement amongst the S, the A, and the B, and all these other letters that I'm iffy on. I'm pretty confident in Eveloth top, though. I'm pretty confident in that one. Let me know in the comments, though. Comment how wrong I am, and obviously subscribe. Morro out.